From the vast, icy wilderness stretching between Europe and Asia, a nation forged by ambition and endurance was born. This is the story of Russia, told through the rulers who carved its destiny from ice and fire. Our journey begins in the year 862 with a Viking prince named Rurik. He arrived in the lands of Novgorod, founding a dynasty that would rule for centuries and lay the very first stones of what would become a colossal empire. His successor, Oleg, moved the capital to Kiev, uniting the Slavic tribes and creating the Kievan Rus, the true birth of the Russian state. A century later, a name was forever etched in gold: Prince Vladimir the Great. In 988, he made a decision that would change Russia forever, converting to Christianity and binding his kingdom to the Byzantine Empire. This act didn't just change their faith, it reshaped their entire culture. His son Yaroslav the Wise followed, giving Russia its first written laws and turning Kiev into a beacon of art and learning. But unity is fragile. The Kievan Rus crumbled, splitting into smaller principalities, just as a new storm gathered on the horizon. In the 13th century, the Mongols, led by Batu Khan, grandson of the mighty Genghis Khan, swept across the plains like a firestorm, leaving cities in ashes. For over 200 years, Russia fell under the shadow of the Golden Horde. Yet even in the darkest times, embers of resistance glowed. In the northern forests, a new power was quietly rising: Moscow. Under Ivan I, a shrewd prince who played a clever game of loyalty and ambition, the city grew strong. It was his grandson, Ivan III, who would finally break the chains. In 1480, Ivan the Great cast off Mongol rule, declared Moscow the Third Rome, and forged the scattered Russian lands into a single, powerful state. His son, Vasily III, continued his father's work, expanding the borders and tightening central control. But it was Vasily's son who would become a legend of both greatness and terror. In 1547, Ivan IV was crowned the first official Tsar of all Russia. History would remember him as Ivan the Terrible. He was a modernizer and a conqueror, crushing the Khanates of Kazan and Astrakhan and opening the door to Siberia. But his brilliance was matched by a chilling paranoia. He unleashed the Oprichnina, a secret police force that drowned the land in the blood of anyone suspected of treason. His death plunged Russia into chaos. The time of troubles was a dark chapter of famine, war, and pretenders fighting for a shattered throne. The nation was on its knees until 1613, when a new dynasty rose from the ashes, the Romanovs. A 16-year-old boy, Mikhail Romanov, was chosen as Tsar, beginning a reign that would last over 300 years. Stability returned, but it was Mikhail's grandson who would ignite a revolution. Peter the Great, crowned in 1682, was a human whirlwind. He dragged Russia kicking and screaming into the modern age. He built a navy from scratch, forged a European-style army, and founded a magnificent new capital, St. Petersburg, his window to the West. After defeating Sweden in the Great Northern War, he officially proclaimed the Russian Empire in 1721. A series of rulers followed, but in 1762, another giant of history seized the throne. Catherine the Great, a German princess who overthrew her own husband, ruled with an iron will and a brilliant mind for 34 years. She expanded the empire's borders further than ever before, crushed rebellions, and cemented Russia's place as a dominant European power. Her descendants faced new challenges. Alexander I stood defiant against Napoleon. In 1812, as the French Grand Army marched on Moscow, the Russian people made an unbelievable sacrifice. They burned their own holy city to the ground, forcing Napoleon into a disastrous retreat through the brutal winter. The empire didn't just survive, it emerged stronger. The 19th century brought immense change. Nicholas I was a rigid autocrat, but his son, Alexander II, would be known as the Tsar Liberator. In 1861, he abolished serfdom, freeing millions of peasants in a single stroke. But this monumental reform wasn't enough for the growing revolutionary movement, and he was tragically assassinated. His son, Alexander III, responded with an iron fist, clamping down on dissent. This set the stage for the final act. Nicholas II, the last Tsar of Russia, inherited a powerful but deeply troubled empire. A humiliating defeat in the Russo-Japanese War and the immense suffering of World War I finally broke the people's faith. In 1917, revolution erupted. Nicholas II was forced to abdicate, and the 300-year Romanov dynasty came to a sudden, violent end. From the ashes of the empire, a new radical ideology emerged. The Bolsheviks, led by Vladimir Lenin, seized power and plunged Russia into a brutal civil war. By 1922, Lenin had created a new state, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, the USSR. After his death, a man of steel, Joseph Stalin, took control. He transformed the Soviet Union into an industrial and military superpower, but at a terrifying cost. His reign of purges and terror claimed millions of lives, yet it was under his leadership that the USSR defeated Nazi Germany in World War II, emerging as one of the two most powerful nations on Earth. After Stalin, Nikita Khrushchev denounced his predecessor's crimes, but brought the world to the brink of nuclear war during the Cuban Missile Crisis. Leonid Brezhnev followed, a period of military might but also economic stagnation. Then in the 1980s, Mikhail Gorbachev tried to reform the system with his policies of perestroika and glasnost. He opened the floodgates of change, but the flood washed away the very foundations of the state. In 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed. Boris Yeltsin became the first president of the new Russian Federation, overseeing a chaotic transition to democracy and capitalism. And at the turn of the millennium, a new leader rose to power, Vladimir Putin. He brought a sense of stability and control, reasserting Russia's influence on the world stage and becoming the dominant figure of the modern era. From Rurik to Putin, this is a saga of over 1,000 years, a journey through conquest and collapse, faith and revolution, saints and monsters. It is the story of a nation that has endured everything history could throw at it: invasion, tyranny, and radical change. The rulers change, the empires fall, but the soul of Russia, eternal, unbroken, and powerful, endures. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this journey through history fascinating, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more stories like this one. See you next time.